Hey guys, today I bring you the impressive account of Calandra Everly, a mother and network coordinator from Portland who faced death and came back with an impactful message. Jesus revealed to her the spiritual destiny of the prejudiced and the transformative power of love. What she saw on the other side will change the way you see life. So, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this. Get ready for an exciting and revealing journey. My name is Calandra Everly. I never imagined I would be here, sharing a story that challenges every belief I ever had. I'm a network coordinator at a snack company in Portland, Oregon. I am 42 years old, with 2 teenage children, and until a few nights ago, I thought that my life had already shown me all its difficulties. But really, she was just starting to teach me. It all started on a rainy night. Portland was shrouded in that damp, bone-deep cold. Elliot and Lillian, my children, were already asleep. I had just finished a long work conference and was feeling strangely exhausted, more than usual. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, I watched the rain running down the window as I tried to relax. I always liked hearing the sound of rain. It was comforting. But that night, even the gentle sound seemed unable to ease the growing tension in my chest. I realized something was wrong when my breathing started to hitch. It was as if every attempt to breathe in was interrupted by an invisible barrier. My fingers started to tingle, and my heart raced. My mind went on alert. No, it can't be like that again, I thought. I tried to convince myself it was just tiredness, maybe anxiety, but deep down, I knew it was something more. I stood up, staggering, to get my inhaler, but I tripped and caught myself on the coffee table. The world spun for a moment, and a sense of panic washed over me. I knew it was an allergic reaction. I had been through this before, but never to this intensity. Despite this, I hesitated to call an ambulance. I didn't want to scare my children or appear fragile. "What's happening to me?" I muttered, my voice cracking. My thoughts were confused, and my body felt like giving up. Fatigue hit me like a wave. I lay down on the bed at an angle, a position that normally helped me breathe better, and closed my eyes. The last thing I remember was the sound of the rain becoming distant, as if I were moving away from everything. Then came silence, and in the silence, something began to change. When everything went dark, I thought it was the end. My consciousness oscillated between anguish and relief, like a flame about to go out. But suddenly, a sensation arose that I had never experienced before. It was as if the purest air in the world was filling every part of me. Far from the pain and struggle to breathe, I felt a deep calm, a peace that transcends words. At first, I thought it was a dream. I opened my eyes, although I wasn't sure if I was using physical eyes or something else, and was faced with something that defied logical explanation. Down below, I saw my body. She was lying on the bed, motionless, with her hands resting on her abdomen. It was strange and at the same time fascinating. I felt separate from the pain, like I was watching someone else. But that person was me. My first impulse was panic. What's happening to me? I thought, although my mouth didn't move. I tried to get closer to my body, extending what looked like a hand, but there was no solidity. It was as if I were made of light, floating in a state of pure consciousness. At the same time, I began to notice sounds and sensations that seemed to come from everywhere. It was as if a celestial symphony was playing softly around me, a melody that seemed to pulse with life. There was a harmony to it, a feeling that everything was connected. It wasn't just sound, it was a vibration that enveloped me. What's happening to me? The question echoed again, but this time, in a more curious than fearful way. I started to float around the room. It was as if an immense magnetism was pulling me away, but I still had enough control to resist. Out of pure curiosity, the vision of my body began to become distant. I climbed up, crossing the ceiling of the room and observing the contours of the house. A part of me still thought about my children, how they would react if they found me like this. This worry seemed to keep me connected, like a thin line connecting my spirit to my physical body. However, another side of me, freer, lighter, was fascinated by the new reality that was unfolding. I didn't know where I was going, but strangely, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be, floating in that dimension of peace. I felt something change. The light around me became brighter, warmer, as if it were alive. It was welcoming and seemed to call me to a place beyond what my senses could comprehend. I was pulled by this energy, effortlessly moving as if there was no time or space, just a constant, harmonious flow. Suddenly, two figures began to appear in the light, their shapes defined but impossible to fully describe. The first figure was intense, radiant, but in a gentle way, like the warmth of the sun on a spring morning. I didn't need to ask who it was. I knew. It was Jesus. He didn't have the face I was used to seeing in paintings or movies. His form was made of light, a light that seemed to pulse with unconditional love. As he approached, I felt every part of me being embraced by his presence. Without words, he communicated directly to my heart. You are loved, always have been and always will be. These words were not just heard, they were felt, as if they were engraved in my soul. Before I could react, another figure began to form beside him. It was different. This light was not just white. It pulsed with vivid colors, constantly changing, as if it contained the very spectrum of creation. It was God, not as I imagined, an old man sitting on a throne. This presence was infinite, immense, but at the same time personal. It was as if the entire universe was concentrated in one place, and yet it cared deeply about me. You are perfect, God said, but not in words. The message resonated in every fiber of my essence. The weight of my insecurities and self-criticism instantly disappeared. For the first time in years, I felt whole. As I absorbed this experience, Jesus stepped forward and with a gentle gesture, showed me something I will never forget. The light around us dimmed, and I found myself in a dark, almost gloomy place. It was cold, and there were indistinct figures wandering around, their expressions of pain and regret clearly visible. This is the world of shadows, Jesus explained, his voice filling the space with serenity. Here, those who spread prejudice, hatred, and discrimination confront the energies they sowed in life. I trembled. Are they trapped here? Not forever, he replied with sadness but also hope. They face the reflection of what they created until they understand the need for love. This revelation changed something deep within me. I needed to know more. I needed to understand. But the feeling of loving welcome enveloped me again, protecting me from all fear. Jesus' words echoed within me, bringing a mixture of sadness and understanding. The world of shadows. It was a place where souls faced the weight of the energies they created in life, especially those that propagated prejudice, hatred, or discrimination. I knew this wasn't the hell described in religious sermons. There was no fire, demons, or divine punishment. It was something deeper, a direct reflection of the negative choices and emotions these people harbored. I looked around, trying to understand more about that place. The figures wandering in the dark seemed trapped in their own emotions. Some cried silently, others seemed to scream silently, but there was no sound. A woman with long hair, covered in gray, seemed to be reliving a moment of infinite rage. Her fists clenched as she stared at something invisible. It was as if she was trapped in an endless cycle of resentment and pain. These souls, Jesus continued, are those who have allowed hate to guide their lives. They have denied the beauty of diversity, closed their hearts to love and acceptance. Here, they are confronted with the consequences of their actions and thoughts. But even here there is hope. Hope? My voice, or what sounded like my voice and came out weak, full of curiosity. Yes, Jesus replied. The love they denied themselves and others is still available to them. This place is a mirror. Once they accept the love, once they understand the connection between all souls, they can choose to leave here. As he spoke, a new figure appeared in the distance. This one seemed different from the others, less dark, more conscious. She looked around, as if noticing something for the first time. Little by little, a soft light began to envelop her, and she disappeared from the darkness. She understood, said Jesus, smiling slightly. She chose love. I was impressed by the simplicity, but also by the depth of what was shown to me. There was no judgment coming from God or Jesus. The judgment came from within the people themselves, confronting their choices and their pain until they finally opened up to love. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because the world needs to know, Jesus replied with a firm tone. Discrimination against black people, gay people, women and any other group that is marginalized is not just a social problem, it is a spiritual issue. Every act of hate creates a shadow that must be faced. Love is the only way. God, still shining beside me, surrounded me with his multicolored light, as if to reinforce the message. You are not here by chance, Calandra. You need to take this truth back with you. The weight of that mission began to settle in my spirit. I wanted to understand more, but at the same time I felt like I was being prepared for something bigger. The light around me began to change again, and I realized that more would be revealed to me. After Jesus' words, the light around me began to pulse as if space itself was breathing. God, in his form of multicolored light, stood by my side, radiating a reassuring warmth. Before I could fully process what I had just witnessed, my vision changed again. Suddenly, I found myself transported to what seemed like a vast screen, but this screen was not in front of me. It was all around me, enveloping me completely. I was inside it, watching my own life, but from a different perspective. It was like I was experiencing it all over again, but with a clarity I had never experienced. The first scene that appeared was of myself as a child, in a park with my best friend, Naomi. I remembered that day. She had been teased by other children for being black, and instead of defending her, I remained silent, afraid that I would also be teased. Reliving that moment brought me deep pain. I realized now how my silence had contributed to Naomi's hurt, something I had never fully acknowledged before. These moments, Jesus said, appearing at my side, are learning opportunities, not to judge you, but to help you understand the impact we have on each other. The next scene was more recent. I found myself arguing with Elliot, my son, after he got a low grade in math. At that moment, I was exhausted and frustrated, and my words were harsh. What impacted me was seeing his face after the argument, not the anger he showed on, but the silent pain he hid. I had never noticed this before. Tears filled my eyes as I watched. I failed him, I whispered. No, God replied, his voice echoing like a hug. You acted based on what you knew at the time. Now you see more clearly. That's what matters. There were also moments of light. I found myself helping an elderly neighbor carry his groceries. A small gesture, but one that had brightened his day in ways I had never known. I found myself comforting Lillian when she lost her first art competition, telling her that her worth didn't depend on prizes. These moments of kindness had left lasting impressions, far greater than I could have imagined. Finally, something surprising happened. I started seeing scenes that hadn't happened yet. I watched my children grow and face their own challenges. I saw Elliot becoming a teacher, touching children's lives in a positive way. I saw Lillian, an artist, creating works that inspired others. But the most memorable was a scene of myself at a community event, speaking about inclusion and acceptance. My message was clear. Love is the only thing that matters. These glimpses gave me a sense of purpose and urgency. This is what you can build, Jesus said. But the choice is always yours. As my life review came to an end, I felt the weight of all my choices, good and bad, but also the freedom of knowing that I had the power to change and do differently. It was clear that my time there would not just be a passive experience. I had a decision to make. The light around me stabilized, as if the universe itself was giving me time to absorb everything I had just experienced. My spirit felt divided. One part of me wanted to remain there, in that space of pure love and deep understanding, while another part felt a growing restlessness. It was as if an invisible thread still connected me to the physical world, to my family, to my children, to what I could still accomplish. Jesus and God were by my side, their presence radiating warmth and security. I noticed that they didn't pressure me into making a decision. There was no urgency, just infinite patience, but I knew deep down that this choice needed to be mine. Can I stay here? I asked, my voice feeling like a soft echo. Yes, Jesus replied, his light pulsing in harmony with mine. There is peace, love, and freedom here, but if you choose to return, you will take with you the lessons you learned and have the opportunity to spread love where it is needed most. Going back means facing everything again, I thought, feeling a weight on my soul. My physical body was exhausted, my health was fragile, and the outside world was a place full of challenges. But then, images of my children flooded my mind. I saw Elliot with his school books, laughing as he showed off his creative ideas. I saw Lillian painting in her room, the walls covered in drawings that reflected her vibrant spirit. I also saw their tears, their voices calling out to me when they found out I was gone. I can't leave them, he said, almost in a whisper. They need me. No matter how tired I am, They need to know they are not alone. God approached, enveloping me in his multicolored light. His presence conveyed a love so powerful that it seemed to dissolve all doubts. The choice is yours, Calandra. The love you give and the love you receive are parts of the same cycle. They still have as much to learn from you as you do from them. I looked at Jesus, looking for some sign, and he just smiled. It wasn't a smile of judgment, but of acceptance. He knew what I would decide, but he waited patiently for me to verbalize it. I want to go back, he finally said, feeling a mixture of sadness and determination. I still have things to do. I want to be better. I want to do more. Then it will be like this, God replied, his voice vibrating in my essence. But take with you what you've learned, and never forget, love is the only thing that matters. I felt a growing pressure, as if my spirit was being pulled back into something dense and restrictive. It was uncomfortable, but not painful. My physical body felt heavy, as if every cell was awakening from a deep sleep. My blue essence, or as I perceived it, began to adjust itself to every part of me, first my arms, then my legs, and finally my chest. When my consciousness fully returned, a wave of pain shot through my body, but something was different. I was alive, but also transformed. I slowly opened my eyes, with the sound of rain now clearer and more present. I took a deep breath, feeling the purity of that simple act. My children were still sleeping, and the world around me seemed intact, but I knew nothing would be the same. When I finally regained consciousness, the first thing I felt was the weight of my body, as if I were carrying armor. Every muscle seemed to be waking up from a long torpor, sore and resistant. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the faint light coming from the lamp next to the bed. Breathing was still difficult, but it was there, constant, like a small victory. The sound of rain hitting the window filled the silence again, bringing me back to the physical world. I lay there for a moment, trying to understand what had happened. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't my imagination. I knew this with as absolute certainty as I knew I was alive. The memory of God and Jesus, of the lights, of the figures wandering in the world of shadows. It was all burned into my mind, like a movie I could watch over and over again. A sound in the background caught my attention. It was the bedroom door opening. Elliot appeared in the doorway, his eyes half closed and his hair messy. "Mom, is everything okay?" He was holding a glass of water, probably coming from the kitchen. The concern in his voice was evident, and I realized he must have felt something wrong, even while he was sleeping. I forced a smile, even though my strength was still limited. "Yes, darling. Just a rough night." My voice was hoarse, but firm enough to reassure him. He nodded, but stood still for a few seconds, as if unconvinced. Then, he took 2 steps forward and placed the glass on the table next to the bed before returning to his room. His gesture, small and silent, carried more love than any words could express. I stood there alone again, reflecting on what had just happened. I closed my eyes and mentally relived God's embrace, Jesus' voice, and the visions that had shown me the impact of my actions on the world. The love I felt on that other plane still pulsed inside me, like a new force that sustained me. I tried to get up, but my body was still fragile. The effort made me go back to bed. I needed to rest, but my mind was restless. I knew this experience had been much more than an encounter with the unknown. It was a calling. Something inside me said I couldn't continue living the same way. When I finally gave in to sleep, I heard, like a whisper in the back of my consciousness, the phrase that seemed to echo from the moment I decided to return. Love is the only thing that matters. That night, as the world around me remained quiet, a profound change began to grow within me. It wouldn't be an easy path, but I was ready to face it. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling of renewal. My body was still sore, but there was something different, a spiritual lightness I had never felt before. It was as if an unknown energy was pulsing inside me, constantly reminding me of the message I received. Love is the only thing that matters. I stood up slowly, feeling each movement as an exercise in reuniting with my physical body. I walked to the kitchen, where my children were already drinking coffee. Elliot, sitting at the table, was diving into his cell phone, while Lillian, with her hair tied up in a messy bun, scribbled something in her notebook. It was an ordinary scene, but to me it seemed extraordinary. I was there, alive, with them, and that was a miracle. "Good morning, Mom," Lillian said, looking up from her notebook. His soft features carried a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Are you better today?" "I am, darling," I replied, feeling the sincerity of my words. "I'm much better." As I prepared my coffee, the message I received the night before kept echoing. The experiment felt as real as the cup I held in my hands. The world of shadows, the review of my life, the words of Jesus. Everything remained vivid. I couldn't ignore the urgency to share what I experienced, but I felt hesitant. How can you explain something so profound without sounding insane? Later that morning, I went to the office of Dr. Miriam Lang, my allergist. I needed to understand what had caused the allergic reaction, but deep down, I knew it was there for more than a medical diagnosis. When she entered the room, with her clipboard in hand and her face attentive, I began to tell her what had happened. First, I described the physical symptoms, then the sensations of being out of body. She listened intently without interrupting, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes. When I mentioned visions of Jesus and God, she placed her clipboard on the table and leaned forward. "Calandra, you know that some near-death experiences can be explained as hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain," she said, with a gentle tone. "I know, doctor," I replied, looking straight into her eyes. "But what happened to me wasn't just physical. I felt things that go beyond any scientific explanation. I received a message, and I believe it's something that needs to be shared." Miriam nodded, without arguing. Even without saying it, he seemed to understand that there was something in my voice that couldn't be ignored. It wasn't about convincing others of the truth. It was about living this truth, integrating it into my daily life, and letting my example speak for itself. As I left the office, I realized that the biggest challenge was just beginning, living up to the message I received and transforming my life to reflect the love I experienced. In the days following my experience, I realized that something within me had profoundly changed. It was as if a filter had been removed from my eyes, revealing the raw, beautiful truth of the world around me. I started observing people differently. In the market, on the street, at work, I saw them as unique souls, connected to me in ways I never would have realized before. Every look, every gesture carried a story, a pain, a joy, and above all, infinite potential for love. The first week after the incident, I decided to get Elliot and Lillian together to talk. It wasn't something we did often, as daily life always seemed to pull us in opposite directions, but I knew I needed to share what had happened. We were sitting on the sofa in the living room. Elliot looked uncomfortable, scrolling through his cell phone, while Lillian held a mug of tea, curious, but silent. I took a moment to take a deep breath before I started. "I want to talk to you about something important," he said, trying to find the right words. "That night I got sick. Something happened that completely changed the way I see life. I had a near-death experience." Lillian's eyes widened as Elliot finally looked up from his cell phone. "Did you almost die?" he asked, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and concern. "Yes," I replied calmly, "but it wasn't just that. During this experience, I left my body. I saw things I never imagined were possible. I found Jesus and God, and they showed me that love is the only thing that truly matters." There was a moment of silence. Elliot seemed to process what I said, while Lillian started asking questions. What were they like? What did you see? Why is love so important? I tried to answer as honestly as possible, but I also realized that not all answers could be explained in words. "It's hard to describe," I admitted, "but what I do know is that we must live in a way that spreads love and acceptance, because everything we do has an impact, not just here, but beyond." That conversation was the beginning of something new for our family. I decided that I needed to not only tell what I experienced, but also live by it. I started paying more attention to my words, my actions. At work, I was involved in inclusion initiatives, ensuring that no one was marginalized. At home, I began to value time with my children more, putting aside the rush to really be present. There were challenges, of course. Some people doubted my experience or thought I was delusional, but that didn't faze me. The love I felt during my NDE was so strong, so real, that there was no going back. Over time, I began sharing my story at small community gatherings, using my voice to inspire others to see life differently. Every time I told what I experienced, I felt that the divine message strengthened within me. The months following my near-death experience were a journey of adaptation and transformation. Each day was an opportunity to apply the lessons I learned, but also a challenge to balance my new perspective with the demands of everyday life. One thing was certain. I could no longer ignore the divine message I had received. Love is the only thing that matters. It wasn't just a sentence. It was the foundation upon which I would rebuild my life. I started getting more involved in the local Portland community. I volunteered at shelters, helped with inclusion programs, and spoke at events about the importance of love and acceptance. Each interaction felt like an extension of the light I felt during my NDE, like I was giving back to the world a little of what I was given. One day I was invited to attend an interfaith meeting at a local library. It wasn't something I usually did, but I accepted it, feeling that perhaps it was a necessary step. There were Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists, people from all backgrounds, discussing how to promote tolerance and respect. During the Q&A session, someone asked me, "Calandra, what makes you so sure that love is the answer? Don't you think that hate and violence are more present forces in the world?" I took a deep breath before responding. Hate may seem strong, but it only thrives where there is fear and ignorance. Love, on the other hand, is the only energy that creates, transforms, and connects. My experience has shown me that every act of love, no matter how small, it reverberates far beyond what we can imagine. It's like throwing a stone into a lake. The waves spread, reaching places we've never seen. There was a moment of silence before the room began to applaud. That moment gave me the courage to move forward with a bigger project, writing a book about my experience. It wasn't just about my NDE, but about how we can all live more connected and loving lives. The working title, Love is the Only Thing That Matters. At home, the changes were also visible. Elliot and Lillian began to engage more in community activities, inspired by my stories. Elliot, who used to be more rebellious, demonstrated a new sense of responsibility and empathy. Lillian, with her artistic sensibility, began to create paintings based on the descriptions I gave of Jesus, God, and the shadow world. His works, vibrant and full of light, quickly caught the attention of local galleries. The near-death experience was not the end of one journey, but the beginning of another. There were still difficult days, moments of doubt and tiredness, but in all of them, I remembered what God and Jesus had shown me, that love connects everyone and everything, and that choosing to live in that truth is our greatest responsibility. If I could leave one message for anyone reading or listening to my story, it would be this: every word and every action has the power to heal or hurt. Choose to heal, choose love. While the future remains a mystery, I know I'm on the right path. The light I experienced that night is still with me, guiding my every step. And deep down, I know that when my time truly comes, I will return to that place of absolute love, knowing that I have accomplished my mission. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.